me what you think about the issues of the world. What kind of spice you wanna be? Tell me where you wanna travel. Do you believe in luxury? What's your hidden passion? What makes you so unique? Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole.
Good evening. Good evening. Happy Monday. It is July 6th, 2020, and I am Nicole Everett, the host of Conversations with Nicole, a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And it is what I call Man Up Monday. Man Up Monday. This is an opportunity for us to engage in conversation. So I invite you to engage with me. We're going to start out by having you all put your city and state that you are viewing this broadcast from in the comments. The comments are the only way that I can see you. So I want to know who's out there so that I can give a shout out to you. July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, and we will be talking about mental health for Black and Brown folks throughout the month of July. July is also my birth month, so birthday in 2 weeks, so very excited about that. So tonight, for this Man Up Monday, we're going to talk about Black men and mental health. Black men and mental health. So again, let me know where you're tuning in from. I see you, Mr. Tyler Maximus Lavender in Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you for tuning in. And greetings to my LT37 classmate, Patrick Barano of Barano and Sons. Appreciate you tuning in too. So I've been talking about mental health, not only on the broadcast, but just throughout the entire month. I've been talking to several clinicians of color, and they've had some very interesting things to say. Many of them you will see in the next few weeks on Monday or Wednesday that will be sharing information from everything from trauma to suicide to stress, anxiety, depression. So we got a lot coming up, but I want to talk about, again, Black men and mental health, Black men and mental health. So for those of you who don't know, I sit on a group here in Tallahassee called the Mental Health Council of the Big Bend. And we primarily are looking to get information to the community, and particularly Southside, Frenchtown, and the Macon community about the mental health resources that are available in our area, right? One of the things that we have been challenged with, and particularly in the Black community, is the stigma associated with mental health and mental health services. So some of the stigma that goes along with that is, I don't want nobody in my business, and, you know, a lack of trust. Now that lack of trust extends beyond just psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, and therapists. A lot of times in the Black community, it can be just regular primary doctors or specialists or dentists. You know, we have a little bit of reason to have some distrust with some of the healthcare professionals. And another one of the things that also may be associated with it is sometimes there's a lack of cultural competency. So if you don't have a Black physician, then sometimes they may not be able to really relate with some of the things that you may have gone through or may experience. So those are a couple of the barriers. Another one could be that, you know, the Black community does tend to be a community of faith. Oftentimes you'll hear the narrative of, well, God is going to work it out. I'm just going to pray my blues away, or, God will heal my sickness. And not to say that God is not able and can't and won't do that, but God also gave us psychiatrists and psychologists and physicians and counselors and therapists as well. So why not utilize both? I think sometimes we can use faith as a crutch when, again, there are licensed professionals, social workers, that sort of thing, that can assist us with these very pertinent issues. So, when we talk about mental health, especially with Black and brown folks, these are some of the narratives that we hear in terms of the stigma associated with it. So as I delve a little deeper and talk about Black men. Now, Black men sometimes get a bad rap, especially as it relates to, and this may be men in general, but I deal mostly with Black men, got a Black father, have a Black son. So that's my point of reference. So bear with me. Black men sometimes get a bad rap for, not going to get their checkups annually, or if they have a health issue, maybe they put it off because they just don't want to go to the doctor or what have you. They don't want nobody poking and prodding them and that sort of thing. And I think the same holds true for mental health. So how many of you know out there that there is a such thing as a mental health assessment that you can get done? Anybody familiar with the mental health assessment? Let me know in the comments. Mental health assessment, that's a real thing that you can get done. Has anybody ever heard of that? Just raise your hand, give me a thumbs up, let me know. Have you heard of a mental health assessment? Anybody? Let me know. I see Tony Trotter. He said men need new ways to process bad behavior. Okay. Tony, we're going to get back to that. All right. So mental health assessment. Anybody ever heard of that? All right. Y'all are kind of quiet. So I'm going to share with you some of the information that I actually found out today. Again, talking to a practitioner who will be on the show later this month, found out that, well, actually talking to another practitioner, and she shared with me that the mental health assessments could be something as simple as, how are you? How are you doing? How are you feeling? Have your sleeping patterns changed? Have your eating patterns changed? Are you doing the things that you like to do? Do you feel any type of mood change and shift? And when she told me that, I thought, every time I go to my primary care doctor, there's a sheet that I fill out along with the rest of my paperwork that's asking me these questions about my emotions and my sleeping patterns, any weight gain or loss, without even weighing me, just asking me, am I around the same weight and that sort of thing. And she was expressing that that's a form of a mental health assessment. And depending on how you respond to those questions, they're going to ask you even more questions. So that, in and of itself is a little bit of a mental health assessment, but there are some really intense questions that get into any adverse childhood experiences, that also get into anxiety and depression, and ask you, up front, like drug use and no judgment, but just trying to assess kind of where you are and what you may be experiencing and why you may be experiencing it. So, mental health assessments can, based on what I've learned just today, kind of run kind of wide on the spectrum. Some of it can include personality tests and that sort of thing. All right, so let me acknowledge some of the comments here. So Julie is on here. She said yes on mental health assessment. All right, very good. And then Johnny said, where do you get one of these? So, Johnny, what you would do is request that of your primary care physician, and request a mental health assessment. And if they aren't able to provide one for you, then you can ask for a referral and get a mental health or behavioral health professional to do that assessment for you. So, one of the practitioners that I talked to today said, that's something that we absolutely should be doing. So, just like we get a physical every year, we should get a mental health assessment. And I'm kind of leaning towards that way as well. Kind of leaning towards that way. So yeah, encouraging you to check into it, see, if that's something that your primary care physician offers, and if not, can they offer you a referral so that you can have that done? So one of the things that I am also hearing a lot about as it relates to mental health, and this goes for anybody, not just Black and brown people, but anybody, but support is very important, right? So there are different types of support. Support can be instructional in terms of aid and assistance and services. So, can I assist you with food or transportation or money or clothing or shelter? Support can be informational. So, perhaps it can be advice or resources, suggestions. It could be coping strategies, it could be feedback. How can we help you solve this problem? How can I help you solve this problem? And it also can be emotional in terms of holding space for people, right? Holding space. So that whole acceptance, empathy, validation, listening, confronting, protecting, all of that. Comforting and protecting, all of that can be a type of support that we have for one another. So, I think sometimes, again, men have been socialized to be so hard to some extent, so non emotional, that a lot of times I think that Black men in particular, I feel like maybe sometimes don't feel like they have support. And the Black men that are on here, you all can correct me if I'm wrong, but again, just based on some of the conversations that I have had, I feel like, or I sense that you all sometimes can feel quite alone. Um, Maybe not wanting to be vulnerable or to appear weak. And I think that whole kind of be strong thing is something that Black folks in particular struggle with. Because we want to, if you show a sign of weakness, then there's a sense of vulnerability, and nobody wants to be vulnerable, right? And I think it's also been kind of passed down throughout the generations that we have to maintain this kind of um, you know smiley, pleasant demeanor. We don't want to come off as being threatened or appearing threatening. And we get labeled all sorts of things in terms of angry and unruly and savage and things of that nature. And that's not the case. I think if other cultures and races had to endure some of the things that we have had to, then they would probably be feeling some of the same feelings that we are experiencing as well. So, I just want us to take a look at that and, not be so quick to judge what Black men may be going through. I've heard some of my male friends who are on the larger sides. Maybe they are tall, maybe they are dark complexion, and maybe they are a little hefty. Talk about how they can sense um, um, people being intimidated by their size or by their height, even by their complexion. And, that could do a number on you when you're just trying to be who you are, but people, there's a fear factor associated with just your size, your stature, the deepness of your voice, that sort of thing. But, we can't allow those things to hinder us from being our beautiful selves. So let me pause. I see a couple of more comments on here. Julie chimed in and said FSU offers them too. So she was talking about the mental health assessment. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for mentioning that, Julie. FSU has a whole mental health, and they don't call it mental health. I gotta find the brochure, but they got a whole like psychology clinic over there at FSU that actually provides services. And FSU is Florida State University, for those of you who aren't in Tallahassee and don't know what it is. But they offer mental health services to the community for free. And I believe it's Monday through Friday. So I'm gonna have to get that information and put it in the comments for you all to refer to. So free mental health services, and like Julie just stated, they also do the mental health assessment. So absolutely take advantage of that, especially if your insurance or your health plan does not cover mental health services. All right, I see Ursula. Good evening, greetings. Thanks for tuning in. Ursula's right here in Tallahassee. So let me hear from you all on Black men and mental health. Black men and mental health. What are your thoughts about that? I saw Tony put in a comment earlier. He said men need new ways to process bad behaviors. So what do y'all think about that? The men have bad behaviors as it relates to mental health and getting the mental health or mental wellness checks that they need. What do y'all think? Johnny, I see your comment. You said free. Yes, from what I understand, those services are free. So I do have a brochure. I don't have it right here beside me, but I'll get it and put the information in the comments in terms of how you can reach out to them via phone or email or website. So I'll get that to you. All right. So a new way to process bad behavior. What do you think about that? Do you think, bad behavior is what men are exhibiting? Are they, just being stubborn? I've heard that quite often. Do you think there's a fear factor, as it relates to something actually being found and then them having to contend with that? I think that might be part of it, is a fear factor. So what do y'all think? Let me know. What you think. Mental health and men. What do y'all think? Are there cultural biases that men, Black men in particular, feel uncomfortable with? I know, speaking from my personal experience, my father, and he's in his late 70s, he does not like going to the doctors. He does not like, all of the poking and prodding and all of that sort of thing. And he's really sensitive, although he will not ever say this, but he is really sensitive when the nurse, the doctor, whoever, the professional, the healthcare professional, if they don't have a good bedside manner, you might as well just pack it up. Because he is shutting it down. He don't want to have nothing to do with them. If they aren't nice and mannerable, and yeah, he's done. So yeah, I think that maybe, and I don't know if any other folks experience that with their, senior men in their family, that just don't want to have anything to do with it. But that whole customer service kind of bedside manner, if it's not on point, my dad is not. He's not happy. So let me see. I got Latoya. Latoya's gonna be my guest coming up, and I had a great conversation with her. She is a clinician. She said defense mechanism, fearful of allowing themselves to become vulnerable. Yes. So that is very true. That whole vulnerability piece. So how do we overcome that? How do we get past that I don't want to appear weak, and I don't want to be looked upon as soft or any of that sort of thing. I mean, while yes, you may know some things about your body, you don't know everything. And again, that's why we have doctors, so they can help us out when our bodies aren't functioning the way that they are supposed to be functioning. So you got to let go of those defense mechanisms, and you got to let go of that fear. I mean, I guess you don't have to, but in order for whatever is ailing you to be treated, you got to get over that. You got to allow, folks who know better than you, who may know better than you about what's going on with you, to assist you. All right. We got Tyrone Brooks in the house. He is here in Tally. He said insecurities and conditioning from an early age could be past experiences. So yes. Yes. That's a whole nother show, Tyrone. I'm telling you, that whole adverse experiences, especially from childhood, can definitely do a number on men and women. So, one of the things that I often talk about is the importance of getting to the root cause of why we do the things that we do, because we are definitely making decisions oftentimes based on those childhood experiences or long-term trauma or traumas from our past. So definitely getting past those and moving forward. And then Tyrone further said black men need constant positive reinforcement. Constant positive reinforcement. I think that is also very true. Anybody have any thoughts about why that might be? Black men needing constant positive reinforcement. While y'all are typing in that comment, Ursula has also said, I think this bad behavior is tolerated oftentimes because of the fact that the man may be top breadwinner and no one wants to rock the boat. Interesting point. So if he is the breadwinner, then yeah. If he is the top breadwinner, then you don't want to rock the boat because you want to keep eating bread, right? So that may be why the bad behavior is tolerated. But in 2020, in this day and age, hopefully there is there are relationships that are built more on teamwork as opposed to I'm the man, you do what I say, type, deal, a dictatorship, if you will, in these relationships. So, but that is a very valid point, Ursula. So thank you for sharing that. All right, Patrick said, I think men in general just want respect, especially from other men. Insecurities tend to make you feel less respected. Okay. All right. So yes, I do think I agree about the insecurities making you feel less respected. So again, if you're feeling insecure, how do you combat that? How do you overcome that? Is it just a facing of your fears, a facing of those adverse experiences that cause you to come up with these defense mechanisms or coping mechanisms to get through? Let me know. What do you think? All right. Julie said, my experience with my brothers is that they are less verbally expressive and more action based with expression. I think this creates a challenge processing ACEs, and ACEs are adverse childhood experiences, and encouraging communication. Okay. So I would agree with the I would agree that the they a lot of times men do tend to be less verbally expressive um and more action based. I've had lives where we've talked about how men, in terms of expressing their feelings, one of the feelings that is acceptable to express is anger, is aggression, but you know, that vulnerability or being emotional from the standpoint of crying or expressing fear, that sort of thing, that is looked down upon. So, I think that helps perpetuate the whole action versus words. It's almost like the whole saying, action speaks louder than words. I'm not about to talk about it, I'm about to be about it and do it. So, encouraging communication, I think, is critical because before you act, I'd like to hear what's on your mind and see what you're thinking about doing. So, to the extent that I think we can help promote that, and men be open to providing that. I've also had conversations on here about why men tend to be delayed in their responses when you're asking questions and things of that nature. And they like flat out told me that part of the reason, especially, men who are in their husbands or fathers or what have you, they don't want to make a mistake. And they don't want, if they make a mistake, to continually hear, you know, you failed or you messed something up. They don't want somebody, their spouse or significant other, to come back and be talking about "I told you so" all the time and continue to rub it into their face. So, I think that we have, and I'm talking to the ladies now, got to be really willing to listen and not be as critical, because sometimes we can be, with their decisions and with their when they do decide to open up and talk. So I think that kind of goes back to Tyrone's earlier comment about the constant positive reinforcement. All right. So Ursula said that would never work for me, but I have observed this dynamic in the community. Okay. Appreciate your comment. Patrick said, I never went to college, so when I engage with college educated men, I tend to be more defensive. I have to tell myself that a degree doesn't make less. I think he meant doesn't make me less of a person, but more of a drive to prove otherwise. Huh. So Patrick, it sounds like a sense of competition in some regards as relates to that. And some feelings of inadequacy in some regards, maybe some feelings of inadequacy, since you tend to be more defensive when you speak to college educated men. So that's an interesting dynamic, especially since you are like a entrepreneur who is, rocking and rolling here, with employees and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, you don't have to, it does not make you less of a person. So you don't have to prove anything to them. All right, we got Alonza on here. Alonza has been one of my guests. He says, "Man Up Monday, thank you for being here." Tyrone said, "Men have fragile egos." Yes, y'all do, and we get it. Patrick Denson, he said, "Greetings, Patrick." He's right here in Tallahassee. He said, "Black men, mental health matters. We need love too." Yes, you do. You do, you do, you do. So I think with Patrick's comment about we need love too. One of the things that I often have talked about is the 5 love languages that Gary Chapman talks about in his book. And, we talk about needing love, but love shows up differently in different people. And that's going to be truly an individual thing, right? So, based on your likes and dislikes, your experiences, the 5 love languages suggest that you may have, you know, again, there are 5, but there you may have like a top 1 or 2, and then the others, you know, you can kind of take or leave them. But you probably are going to have 1 or 2 that are kind of high on your radar in terms of what is a more effective way to communicate with you. So, for those of you who aren't aware of what those love languages are, it is acts of service, it is words of affirmation, gifts, physical touch, and I forgot the last one. But um, that is when you talk about men need love too. I would encourage everybody, not just the men, but the ladies as well, to take that assessment for the love languages and really look at it based on whoever it is you're trying to engage with. So, you may be a person that is gifts is your love language, but the person that you're engaging with, physical touch may be their love language. So if you're trying to gift them to express your care or love or affection for them, and gifts is not their thing, then it may be a turnoff. That might not be how love is effectively shown to that person. So, we need to take these things into consideration in dealing with one another. How to more effectively communicate with each other. So I'm glad you brought that up. Patrick Denson also said, "We were born to be strong, so people think we never should be weak." Ooh, that's a good one. So, yeah, I think that's something, Patrick, that kind of has maintained continuity throughout slavery here in America, to be honest with you. I think, the thought that Black men and women are strong and they can handle just about anything. I was talking with a healthcare professional at a peaceful protest that I went to on June 19th, and I asked this white physician, well, one, kind of like why he was here, and he told me that this was a very important an important cause. And then I asked him if there were any bias and discrimination and prejudice within the healthcare profession. And he said there absolutely was. He said, although he had gone to medical school some 30 years ago and done his residency then, he said he was told that Black people could endure more pain than white people. So that was the mindset, is that we were stronger. We could, endure pain. So we could pretty much handle whatever was being done to us in the hospital or amongst healthcare professionals. And that is not necessarily the case. So he, talked about having to undo some of that thinking because of, just whoever was instructing him was passing that information along. And the whole idea that we can never be weak or show weakness, I think that's something that we kind of has been, in some regards, embedded in us, and something that we kind of hold kind of near and dear to us, because it's almost like the whole fight or flight thing. Um, it's like you're always in survival mode, always fighting. Because if you appear weak, then you're going to get got. And it's kind of a you versus me or me against the world type mentality. So, we have to, debunk that, because that's a myth. We do have weaknesses, and just like every other human being. So we don't have to be these superheroes. We don't have to be strong all the time. There's a time and a place for all of that. So thank you for bringing that up, Patrick. All right, so Johnny asks, where do we find out about the test? So you actually can find that online. It is on Gary Chapman's, I believe, on the website, but you can find it online. I'll try to get that in the comments for you as well. The 5 love languages. So there's a actual, maybe like a 20 question test that you take, and based on your score, it'll tell you which love language is that you are more drawn to. So good question. So, there are a number of tools, techniques out there. When we talk about mental health, it is, important that we set boundaries. And I don't know if folks have heard about setting boundaries, but part of the mindset of setting boundaries are to protect and conserve your emotional and physical energy, right? So that might be trying to limit, negativity from people who have negative energy, or they always are gossiping, or bringing other people down. So boundaries are really, really important. And we need to keep our boundaries, right? Because those things are going to help us maintain a hopefully a positive mindset. And I say positive, but a healthy mindset, and don't allow us to expend our energy on things that are not going to serve us well. So let me know, if you don't mind, what are some of your boundaries? Like, what do your boundaries look like? What do your boundaries look like? Is it separating yourself from certain people? Is it, uh, separating yourself from hearing and seeing certain things in terms of maybe what you consume on television or on social media or on the radio, or the types of magazines and books and things that you will allow yourself to be exposed to? Um, what do your boundaries look like? What do your boundaries look like, if you have any? If you have any, what do your boundaries look like? All right, while you all are telling me about your boundaries or putting them in the comments, Tyrone said, Black men have a defense mechanism from an early age passed down through generations. So I think a lot of that is true. Just again, that whole survival mode. Because in many regards, Black men have been public enemy number one, just because of their strength, their size, their voice, their stature, whether they're tall or kind of buff or healthy, if you will. And that could be a lot. I talked about it a little earlier. That could be a lot. So, how do you, without totally not being yourself, how do you manage that? How do you navigate all that so you're not intimidating to others, especially to non-Black people? How do you navigate that so that you're not intimidating? I mean, perhaps it's the way you groom yourself, the way you dress, your tone of voice. How do you navigate that? So I got 2 questions on the floor about, navigating your look as a Black man, as well as boundaries that you are setting for um, to have to protect your emotional and physical energy. So boundaries that you set to protect your emotional and physical energy. All right, we got Keisha Vicky Lane Washington on here, who's right here in Tallahassee. Greetings. She said, my boundaries are not entertaining certain conversations until I know more about the relationship, friendship. Okay. No, that is very real. And I think more of us need to engage in that. You know, not entertaining certain conversations because, you know, interestingly enough, and we probably take it for granted, but conversations can definitely be a gateway. And before you know it, you have maybe gone off the deep end because of some words that were said or shared or what have you, and now the person, you know, just some words in that conversation has got you riled up, and they have kind of gotten the best of you and about to make a whole movie out of you because you done got mad and angry and all sorts of things. So yes, so some of those conversations you got to shut them down. All right, I got Ozzy on here. Thank you, Ozzy. Ozzy is one of our regulars on Single in the City, where kings meet queens. Ozzy said, my boundaries are having a healthy outlet after much listening and processing information. Not to make it a negative stance, but tool to initiate positiveness. Okay, very good, very good. So having a healthy outlet after listening and processing information. So I'm glad you mentioned processing information because, you know, I think oftentimes there is so much coming at us um, from various sundry sources. It could be from our relatives and friends, our coworkers, social organizations that we're involved in, as well as the media, various forms of media, our phones, our um, tablets, you know, email, all of that sort of thing. All of this stuff is coming in, coming in, coming in. And we probably process like on a daily, maybe 10 to 20% of that stuff, you know. So everything else is there, but to really kind of sit down and process it, it's not something that we probably do. You know, I think taking the time to process the information is valuable. Some stuff kind of falls by the wayside, but other stuff, you know, our brains are putting information in what I call mental buckets. And, you know, we're categorizing this is, you know, something related to family or work or, you know, something that I consider to be positive or negative, good and bad, right and wrong, you know, black and white, young and old, male and female. You know, we got all of these categories that we're, you know, putting all of these things in. So how do we manage all of that? How do we manage all of that? Yeah, I think part of that is, you know, being intentional about taking some time to process the information that is coming at us on a daily basis. So I thank you, Ozzy, for sharing that comment. All right, Tyrone said we set boundaries according to the present environment. So yeah, I think that's true. But I think we can also set boundaries based on the past too. So that could be a contributing factor. All right, Keisha said, are these only for men? My bad. No. So Keisha's Man on Monday, but you can chime in. You know, I let the women chime in as well. So you are good. All right, Wendell Berry. Greetings. Wendell is right here in Tallahassee. He said, I have gone out of my way to be accommodating to white people. It takes too much mental energy to fly under the radar of white comfort. I am cordial, but no longer caring what they think or anyone else for that matter. Okay. I appreciate that, Wendell. And I think that in this, in the state that we are in right now, um, I think that is very much so needed. No, I think it was it Dubois who talked about W.E. Dubois who talked about the double consciousness that Black folks have in America, that we are one way with Black folks and another way with white folks. That's what I think about when I um, just read your comment, Wendell, about the double consciousness that Black folks tend to have. So, being consistent with who we are, being comfortable with who we are, and that that person showing up at all times, not some variation of that person. All right. Jason Hunter, greetings, greetings. He said, "Yes, ma'am. I'm glad you're covering this. Just had a talk with a good brother. I am not okay with everything that is going on as a man in this world." All right. Well, that's why we're talking about it, Jason. So thank you for being on here. Hopefully, this will be helpful as we, navigate this the conditions that we're in currently in America in 2020. All right, Tyrone said every closed eye is asleep, listed in yes process. Indeed. All right, Tremel, how you doing? Tremel is here in Tally. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you are doing well. So yeah, this is good. This is good. I think that the boundaries is an important piece and something that we definitely need to be mindful of and to hold our own selves accountable for those boundaries, because they are there to help and to protect us. They're there to help and to protect us, and I think that it's important to put those in place. Put those in place. So as I think about how, maybe we move forward, what are some, and I will have, again, some actual mental health clinicians on, I promise, starting on Wednesday, who can really speak, um, more intentionally about this. But I want to just, while we're here, let's talk about it. So, what are some ways that we can combat poor mental health? What are some ways we can combat poor mental health? Let me hear from you. So, I think one of the ways that we have already discussed um, quite heavily is the whole thought or concept of always having to be strong and not being able to be weak and vulnerable. So I think one of the ways that we combat it is be okay with your vulnerability, because that is authentically you, and not that you're going to be vulnerable or weak. And I don't like calling it weak, but not that you're going to be that at all times, but you do have moments of weakness, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you are less than or that you are lacking necessarily, but what you're going through, a hurt or something that is causing you to have some pain, and it's okay. It's part of the human experience. Part of the human experience. Um, so let me hear from you. What are some ways that we can combat poor mental health? Mental health. What are some ways we can combat poor mental health? And how can we deal with some of the triggers? Like there are things that may trigger us. So I in a moment of transparency, tend to be a person who kind of holds on to hurts and pains and things of that nature, and not initially allow it to bother me. But I have talked about putting these disappointments and anger and that sort of thing in my suck it up cup, is what I call it. And then something happens and it triggers me. So all of the things, all the anger and hurt and disappointment and pain that I'm holding on to now comes rushing out, flooding out, and now I have to deal with it. So, when something like that happens, you know, going ahead and allowing yourself to feel, you know, also taking deep breaths, also trying to change your thinking, especially if it gets to a point where those feelings are lingering like for a very long time. When I say a very long time, I'm talking like days, right? Because now maybe you are slipping into depression. So I'm a huge proponent of allowing yourself to feel, but again, not staying there forever. So I think that's another way that we can combat poor mental health. All right, we got some comments, so let me pause and acknowledge. So Julie said exercise, sunshine, diet, creating a network of support, create relationships. If you don't feel comfortable getting counseling, try calling a crisis line like 211. Yes, 211 Big Ben. Or get self books, which can be found online, or get counseling through chat. So all of that is great, great, great. Capturing thoughts and framing is huge. So yes, thank you, Julie. That is all of that is great. All right. Wendell said, go to the gun range and let your emotions go through the barrel. Direct that energy into something therapeutic. Okay. So that is another way that you can channel that energy and promote some uh, mental health that is not negative. One of the things that I have been doing for the past 2 months is participating in the OB Fit uh, Mega Ace Walking Running Challenge. They started it in May. May was a 45-mile challenge, and June was I think it was 30, 55, or 100-mile challenge. In this month, they also have like 5 different challenges. So that has worked wonders for me in terms of getting out, walking, the fresh air, being at one with nature. It has not only been good physically, but it's been good mentally, spiritually, emotionally. So I definitely concur with what Julie was saying about exercise. So yeah. All right. Ozzy just wrote a little book right here. He said, acknowledging that we are what we do and not our thinking, being responsible and accountable by being aware. We may not have the answers to all issues, yet taking care of our self emotional well being by dealing with it all, negative and positive. Finding our haven of quietness to deal with as meditation. Meditation is a powerful tool. I have utilized that for many years. Yes, so meditation is a very powerful tool, and that is one that I would highly recommend as well. I do practice meditation also. So good points. Good points. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So any final thoughts about how we can promote and perpetuate positive or good or um, great mental health and wellness? Any final thoughts on that? So, last call for any final thoughts. All right. Johnny had a question. He said, do you know of any African American mental health care professionals? Well, Johnny, funny that you should ask. I absolutely do. I actually posted a list of mental health professionals in the Big Bend area that the Mental Health Council of the Big Bend, the Engaged Committee specifically, put together. That list has been out for about a month, actually. And I will post that on the Conversations with Nicole Instagram and Facebook page again and share it. But yes, there is a list of Black and Brown counselors and therapists in the Big Bend area, and some of them will be appearing on the show here over the next few weeks for, again, Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'll be happy to share that with you. All right. Patrick Barano said, it's okay to feel angry. Emotion is always real. I make sure I find a positive feeling to release that anger. Watch a funny movie, read a book, fishing, etc. All right. So that's good that you, I think that is productive that you find a positive feeling to release that anger, because I think so often times destructive behavior can be associated with anger, and anger is, I think we tend to look at anger as negative, but it's a human emotion. I don't think there are any emotions that are negative. It's just how we channel that energy and what we do with it, and how long we stay in whatever that emotional state is. So, I think finding a way to release the anger positively is helpful and productive. All right. Vicky said, sometimes you just got to take it to the barbershop and let loose. You would be surprised who has your same struggle. So, yes, the barbershop, the beauty salon, the gym, all of these places are where oftentimes we feel comfortable to talk about what's going on with us. So, I think Julie mentioned about support systems, and that was one of the things that I started this live off with, was the types of support that's out there. Emotional support, um, support that's informational, and I can't remember the last one right now, but all of that is very important and helpful and needful in things that we may not have considered, we may take for granted, but you know we really do need support as human beings. So it was instructional, informational, and emotional. Those are the three types of support. So instructional, emotional, and informational. um yeah. All right, let's see. So Ozzy said, read books and study our history in search of Black history. We cannot live presently if we do not know our history. Learn by reflecting on journaling. It's a powerful tool. I agree, Ozzy, with the journaling. And I also agree on the history piece. I think not enough of us know about our history, and, that can be problematic. All right. Ozzy said, it is okay to be angry, but do not get to the point of being bitter. Agreed. And destructive either. All right. Keisha said, to all my Black men, just know that we as Black women love you with no agenda. We love you because you are part of us. Amen, amen, amen. Thank you for sharing that. Agreed. Ozzy said, be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. The book of James. So Ozzy is giving us some Bible quotes there. All right. Tremel said, access to mental health services, resources. I've seen an increase in openness to therapy and the like, but finding services, a local network of clinicians, affordability has discouraged some. Thanks for compiling that list. I'll share. My pleasure. Again, the council that I sit on, that's definitely a main part of our purpose. We have been attending community meetings, trying to get the word out about mental health resources in this area, especially for Black folks, or those who would be considered in the minority, and also just connecting them with people who look like them and have similar experiences as them, and can have the cultural competency to address what their issues are. So, yes, thank you, Tramel. All right, Tyrone said, my honor, my personal time in my line of work, my personal space is essential. So yeah, definitely that's part of that boundaries piece. You know, when it's time to work, you work, and when it's time to play or rest or relax, then you do that too. But you know, try not to allow there to be a lot of crossover. So that's part of that boundaries piece. So thank you for sharing that. All right. So I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Hopefully, this has been beneficial. We will definitely continue this conversation as the month goes on. If you have any questions about mental health, by all means, put it in the comments. We'll definitely try to address those later on. Coming up on Wednesday for What Women Want Wednesday, I have LaShonda Hamadi of Blue Lotus. Um, hold, hold on. Blue Lotus Counseling and Holistic Wellness. She will be my guest, and we will be talking about actually the pros and cons of counseling. But you know, she is a counselor and therapist, and you know, she's been doing this for quite some time, doing this work for quite some time. So she's going to have some really great things to share about self care and psycho education and barriers. And she's also going to have a little activity for us to do. So looking forward to that. I also have got to mention that we got Single in the City tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. On the Single in the City Facebook page, as well as Joe Keetra Horn's Facebook page. So I would invite you all to uh, participate in that. We actually have part two. We invited our guest from 2 weeks ago, Dr. D.K. Kearney, back to give us some insight from a biblical perspective on dating and relationships. So it should be very interesting. We had quite a lively conversation 2 weeks ago. So by all means, do tune into that if you can. And then, of course, Wednesday we'll be here 10 o'clock for What Women Want Wednesday. What Women Want Wednesday. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. I see all the comments. Shapira, appreciate you. My brother, Dr. Willie, appreciate you too. Julie, Ozzy, everybody who's commented and tuned in tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, if you have any thoughts about future topics or guests, let me know. And if you have not subscribed to the Conversations with Nicole YouTube channel, you are not living your best life. So let's get it done today. Conversations with Nicole on YouTube. So appreciate you. I see you, Keisha. Thank you. I appreciate you too. And we will see y'all, if not tomorrow, on Wednesday. All right. Peace.